The Fish's Bargain, Episode 6, last of this comic book issue. All right. Now, these, usually in the back of comic books, I found there to be a bunch of letters to the editor and advertisements and little mini comics. So this is my version of that. And in each of these, each of the issues, there's going to be one of these. And also, I didn't show you the back side of this. Front, usually in comic books, there are full color ads on the back for things like sea monkeys. So that's what I based this on. This is based on the sea monkey ad that I usually saw in the back of the comics that I read as a kid. So I won't go through the whole thing because this is going to be fun for you when you buy it. But there, each one of these characters corresponds to the mother, the father, and the kid. Sea monkey that live in a little bowl. You see, here they are here, and here they are playing around in the bowl. And here's the family having fun looking at them. And I'll just read this. It says, "Enter the wonderful world of amazing, real, ancient genius. The people who form the basis for our civilization. It's amazing when you really just sit down and think about it. These people came up with a system of writing, mathematics, and physics in isolation from the other cradle civilizations, like Egypt and the Mesopotamian cultures and China. The concepts they developed and the structures that they built were so similar to other ancient cultures, you must admit that we are all the same, all over the world. With minds just like ours, they lack only our modern tools. World famous for their pyramids and enormous stone sculptures, the Mayans developed a rich culture in a very short period of time. Most of their ideas were recorded on bark paper, but also many of them have been lost because of the conquest. We only know a fraction of what these highly intelligent people tried to share. Fortunately, they were also skilled sculptors, so many of their messages have been preserved in stone. They used combinations of pictograms, symbols, and images to communicate complex ideas. I have jumbled them together in this comic book just to offer an initial exposure. Be sure to look up their true meanings in proper context by reading the books I have listed. And I have listed them. Wow. And this is a special that you can't use because you're viewing this on the internet. But if you cut out this little thing and send it in, then I'll send you treasures. So I believe I'm charging $3 bills for this, and you don't write a check. You send the $3 bills in an envelope. So this was to explain that I deeply respect the culture of the Mayans, ancient and modern, and I did a whole bunch of research to do this, and then I mashed it all together and I screwed it up and made it into a comic. And in the book's version, I made it into a book, but it's still just fantasy. However, these last few pages are what I'm going to call What We Know for Sure. So this is what we know for sure. I'll read this. Be sure to watch for the next issue of Rain God Returns, entitled Pursuing the Long Count. The last page of this and selected issues is dedicated to a segment we call What We Know for Sure. So here is a timeline for the Mayans, but for all humanity, really. Down here is the beginnings of the human race. And so down here is the pre-human dawn of time that we don't have records of, except in fossils. And starting 150,000 to 160,000 years before the current era, that's BC to some of us, the earliest discovered human in Herto, Ethiopia. That's how long ago we've dated those remains. So we skip all the way up through the eras from the archaic to the formative, and now we're talking in terms of Mayans, where the people traveled from the Asian continent to the Americas, and we find fluted spear points in present-day Clovis, New Mexico, that were dated from 10,000 years ago, about. And further up, we discover in the formative period of the Mayan culture, the earliest discovered single Olmec glyphs in La Venta. And the Olmecs were, they didn't call themselves Olmecs, obviously. That's what we call them. They're the civilization that existed in this area before the Mayans. And then we get into more specific times when we can actually date the Palenque dynasty, the Copan dynasty, the Tikal dynasty, all the classical eras of Mayan culture. And then what happens in 1511 is Europeans come and kind of wreck the whole thing. So this is a timeline that we can use for the whole series, for all the issues. And I also made a cute little map. So I'm going to read this and then turn the map sideways for you. It says, located on this map are the only sites of Maya and pre-Maya civilizations mentioned in this timeline. People have found dozens more scattered throughout Mesoamerica, and there are probably dozens more covered by jungle or eroded away by time. At the height of each culture, there were tiny villages all over the place within walking distance of each other. Their ancestors probably live on top of ancient ruins even today. So here we go. And I'm placing my fictional village around here someplace, but I'm not even going to mention it because the river I created in the story doesn't exist. But these are real rivers and real sites where we have found evidence of a complex culture that existed a long time ago. And then a little closer up, as it moves up into what we call Mexico, well, we would call that the Aztec culture. And they're related but separate and separated by time and geography. So I won't go into that. Up this way is us in the United States. Clovis being sort of like the northernmost, I don't know, civilization from the ancient times. You can call me out on that if you want to. But that is what we know for sure. And the last page is based on, again, all the crammed little advertisements that you find on the back page of a lot of comic books. And what I wanted to do was talk about the real numbering and calendar systems that we discover from classical age Maya sculptures. I made a little Mayan matching mayhem game, which English words fits the Mayan glyph. And then I wrote a little poem, and you're supposed to match the word to the glyph, because I'm taking it as truth that the people who have deciphered the glyphs that we've discovered carved in bas-relief on the temples are accurate. So the poem is, Lord, be my shield so that I may be like the holy snake in flexibility and vigilance, and silent jaguar in strength and cunning. I beseech you to bless my efforts with the grace of a heron and the swiftness of a bat, to bring peace to this place and enlighten me with your spirit. So that's a good poem. That's like a prayer, I'd say. And here are let me read this. Numbers can be written with numerical symbols or the picture of a god associated with that number, or a combination of the two. These little pictures don't merely represent sounds or ideas, they can represent both. Down here it says, confused yet? Because one day can be represented by each one of these things. And it can be a pictograph, or it can be poetic, or a rebus. It is complex. And people who did this knew it, and they could read it. So this is how they divided their numbering system. 1 day, 20 days, 360 days. These are the glyphs that we can actually identify as representing these quantities. And the question is, when we get down to the bottom, these two glyphs equal 1 billion 152 million days. That's what that number is. So what purpose could you summon that would require you to count that many days? Would you count into the future to foretell the rise of a new civilization, as we have seen in this comic? Or would you count to the past to recount the stories from an ancient one? How many days do you think it's been sent from today back to Mayan times? And down here are some glyphs that represent these. Well, let me just read this. The first, on the side here, the first month of the year, Pop, is thought to have begun around the middle of the summer. Each day in the Hob calendar was identified by a day number followed by the name of the month. Mayan texts were written right to left. Have you noticed how many of the faces are turned to the left? Over here it says, each written date began with a glyph translated as the seeding of a named month, which is usually regarded as day 0 of that month. So New Year's Day would be written 0 Pop. These are the names of the month in the classical Mayan Hob calendar, which counts the number of solar days in a year. And we can only guess how the word was pronounced. And we can only guess because there are living Mayans living in on that peninsula, and there perhaps have been a preservation of their language, of the ancient language. We don't know. They don't know. They probably know. I don't know. I don't know who knows. But we can only guess. So that's why I used various pronunciations of the words in this book, and please don't take offense at it if I did it wrong. Just play along. So that is the end of issue 1. I have 3 more to go. If you want me to read those to you, just place a little comment in the comment section, and I'll consider it. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you've enjoyed this.